everybody? Thank you for checking out another video. Today we're going to go over overall market outlook with SPY and Qs, and then our kind of top 10 on our watch list heading into the next week and as we end February. So yeah, that's what we're going to be talking about today. If you haven't already, hit the subscribe and like button. I would appreciate if you did that, just to make sure you stay on top of all these videos and follow along the journey with me. So let's get into it. All right, we're going to talk about SPY first here, just looking at the overall market. And we've talked about SPY before in some of our other videos. The downtrend that we had here, this trend line, this blue trend line that we've got going on right here. But we talked about it broke out and we went and saw a new all-time highs. There's a couple of gaps to fill. As you can see down here, we got a gap. We have a small gap here, and then we have another gap up here. Now, usually gaps aren't a bad thing. As you can see, they happen and the bullish run continues. However, if SPY and the overall market decides that it wants to give us a retest of this trend line breakdown, which isn't a bad thing, it's actually for the long-term outlook in the market, for a bullish long-term outlook, we would like to see a retest of this trend line. We'd like to see it test, hold as support, and then continue back in an upward direction. And as long as we don't go below this 575 candle here when we come down and retest, then we'll be in good shape. That's something that I personally think might happen soon, in the next coming weeks, maybe by the end of February, March or something. And it could even happen sooner than that, actually. That we'll see some candles come down, and we'll come all the way down here and potentially test this support line and then this trend line here. And I just want to do a quick Fibonacci retracement and kind of see what we might be looking at as far as, okay. So percentage-wise, the Fibonacci lines that line up, let's make this a different color so we can see it better. There we go. So yeah, you can see here that a 50% retracement, which is what this 593 level would be, but the gap down here lining up with a prior support line might be where it ends up going all the way down. I mean, who knows? But if this is the local top, and then if this is the local bottom, these are potentially levels that we'd be looking at for pullbacks and turning those into kind of support levels before more upside. It does not have to come down and retest this trend line for more upside continuation. So what is something to keep an eye on here? The Qs, kind of a similar thing, except it wasn't as strong of a breakout like we thought it might be with SPY. We've got a small gap here, and then we didn't actually go over all-time highs. So there's potential for Qs to keep going up more, but it's a similar situation where overall we might end up getting a retest of this trend line that we've been watching for a while. So it wouldn't be surprising if in the next couple of weeks we come back down, hit this trend line, and then bounce back up for more upside. But with a lot of large tech companies reporting earnings in the next couple of weeks, this could just be some simple consolidation, and then it just continues more upside. It's very possible here. So as far as what my personal opinion is, overall outlook, I think it's still bullish long term, especially for 2025. And if we do get any type of correction and retest of the trend lines that I was talking about, that is just a great opportunity to load up more stocks and options and long calls, in my opinion, for the rest of second quarter, third quarter of 2025, and maybe into the end of the year. All right, so let's dive into some individual stocks that we've been keeping an eye on. One is going to be Target, that it had this bear flag that kind of broke down, fake breakdown, came back up, and then we had a big full breakdown actually from this area here. And I thought it was going to just come all the way back down here, but a solid support level was found, some very nice bullish candles, and actually kind of came back up where it looks like it might be wanting to continue up and then retest the bottom end of this trend line again before coming back down. It would not surprise me in the slightest for this to just creep all the way back up, fill the gap that the latest earnings created back in November. It'll just climb, creep, fill that gap, and then more downside. That would not shock me in the slightest, to be honest with you. But what I'm seeing in the more short term that we're going to keep an eye on, and something that you should keep an eye on too, is this potential head and shoulders pattern that's kind of playing out, and it's just something to keep an eye on here. If the head and shoulders plays out, then this is going all the way back down to the 120 mark in the next several weeks and months probably. If though the price can flip this 137, 138 area into a support, and if it continues to go up here, a daily candle close above 139 would probably invalidate the structure. But for now, it's something to keep an eye on. I personally would not be going long or looking for a bullish sentiment or outlook for target unless we get a close over 139 and continue more up like I'm talking about, which would invalidate this head and shoulders. But for now, it's on my watch list of to stay away or to maybe look at puts soon. All right, next we're going to talk about Cigna. So Cigna here has been forming a pretty good base for the past several weeks, and a symmetrical triangle, which is often a bullish pattern. And we had a nice breakout, a pretty solid retest on this candle here, and we're just seeing more upside. Personally, I think in the near to medium future, this is probably going to run all the way up to potentially to the 320 area. Might see some big resistance at the 305, 306 mark first, but I think it's got plenty of upside, and this big trend line that's been kind of running, it wouldn't surprise me to come up here, test it, and then break through it, come down, retest it again for more upside. I'm seeing a lot of positive stuff for Cigna, though, in the near future. Wouldn't also surprise me to see in the next week or two, actually, for a few candles to come down here and retest this breakout line that happened at the 285, 286 mark. Get a candle to bounce off there for more continued upside. Wouldn't shock me in the slightest, and actually it might form a nice little cup and handle pattern, which would be kind of nice to see. So we'll just keep an eye on this for now. We have a long swing on Cigna and holding shares, so just something to keep an eye on. We think it's bullish in the near and short to immediate future here. If it breaks under this trend line and then breaks under this trend line here, we might have to reevaluate our opinion. But for now, things are looking nice. It could be forming a bear flag if we move this trend line and we move this trend line here. Something else to keep an eye on. But for now, we're not going to worry about anything just yet. And the symmetrical triangle is still a nice play here. So let's go over to Starbucks next. Well, where are you? There you are. All right. Starbucks. So Starbucks has been on a nice run over the last week. It looks like it really wants that $100 price target. It wants to retest this bear flag that broke down back in early December. It is coming all the way back up to retest it, and could very well be touch here and then start trickling down all the way back down here again. There's lots of trend lines that Starbucks has in the bigger time frames here, if we zoom out, you can see it's a nice bullish pattern actually forming here with the rising pennant, another pennant forming here. Overall, Starbucks is looking like a bullish play in the long term. By the end of this year, it would not surprise me if at some point it saw new all-time highs. Now, in the more immediate short term, next several days, next several weeks, if we come up to this area here, the $100 price target, that's a big psychological level as well. If it hits here and touches and rejects, then it's probably coming all the way back down to the 93.90 area, in between there. But if it can manage to reclaim this downward trend line here and price can break back over it, then there's no reason why it can't come back up to the 103 mark and maybe even 105 area. So just something to keep an eye on. As far as what my plans are, it could be a very short-term trade for options and calls to target the $100 price. So a very, very short-term trade and swing, and then to keep an eye on it to see if it rejects or if it continues to climb for a more long-term swing and hold. But for now, if you want to do short-term calls, might not be a bad option based on last week's price action. So, all right, let's go check out Home Depot. These are the stocks that we just keep an eye on. So we did an analysis on Home Depot back when the price was down here. And the way that price action was looking, finding support down here, it was really looking like a head and shoulders was going to form with Home Depot. And that is exactly what played out. We got the shoulder here. We got the head here. And then just perfect right shoulder over here. The way that this is looking right now, I fully expect price to come back down here and touch this big long-term blue diagonal trend line. And then the 390 price area would line up perfectly. When price gets here, if it breaks and closes below this 385 area, then we could be going all the way down to the 320 mark, to be honest with you. That head and shoulders could be quite vicious for the stock, but if it manages to find support and bounce here, then it could go all the way back up and not a huge thing to worry about. But for now, I would not be holding a long-term position on Home Depot. I will be looking to buy more when we get closer to that 389, 390 mark to see what price looks like. For now, hands off. You could be looking at puts actually if you wanted to. We might get another retest of this 419 price before it goes down. That would be a good time to be looking at potentially going short on Home Depot if you wanted to. So let's see how we're doing on our time. Yeah, we got plenty of time. Doing good here. So, all right, now we're going to go look at Tesla next, or the bullish ETF, the TSLL, which just follows Tesla price perfectly. It's one that I like to use for trading, but we'll pull up Tesla just so we can all see what might be going on here. So this is going to be an important line, so we're going to make it red so we can all see. And then we got another important situation going on here with these purple lines forming a bear flag, potentially breaking down, coming down to this red line and the 375 price would not surprise me in the slightest. It's very possible here. This blue trend line, we're going to make it yellow. You can see it's holding as a support for now. It's been a good support trend line for a while, but if this breaks, it will be breaking two very important support trend lines, and there will be no question in my mind that this goes back down to the 370 mark. It would also line up quite nicely with a retest of this red line breakout that we had way back at the beginning of December. This prior resistance line has not been tested for support yet, so it looks like in the more short term Tesla is headed down. So if you have shares and you're going long and you don't care about long-term price, you can hold those. I would not be looking at calls right now. But when it gets down to this 370, 375 area, that's going to be a great opportunity to buy a ton of shares, call options, in my opinion, which is exactly what I plan on doing soon. So just something to keep an eye on. Right now, I think it's a more bearish outlook for Tesla. We had our nice Trump pump run up here, but we need to retest down here for more upside can happen, in my opinion. So that's what we're looking at there for nvida. So nvida, we have talked about before in our other videos how we have a rising wedge pattern forming, which is usually a bearish pattern. We said that we expect price to come back up here and hit new all-time highs before the rising wedge ends up breaking down. So far, it looks like that might be what's happening, but we have a potentially scary situation happening at the moment with another Head and Shoulders. There's a lot of stocks forming these head and shoulder patterns, which is not the best outlook for the market, but it would make sense with SPY and Qs having those gaps that need to be filled. So for now, if the Head and Shoulders plays out, we're looking at coming all the way back down to the 132 area at the lowest, or at best case scenario, like a retest here. It's probably going to come back down and touch this white line at the very least at 135, but most likely a trend line touch down here in the 130 to 132 mark. This big red candle that you see right here that happened on Friday is called a bearish engulfing candle. That is not a good sign for upward continuation. It usually means more downward continuation. So I would not be looking to buy NVIDIA right now. I would wait until the price comes back down here, sees this retest, and then if it goes even further and breaks down more, then we could be coming all the way back down to a retest around the $100 price mark, which we have talked about in our past videos, how this blue trend line here has not had a retest yet. It broke out right here in October, and it still needs to come down and retest before more upside to have a healthier structure for a long-term look for 2025. So just something to keep in mind and keep an eye on. I would not be going long right now on NVIDIA, but we've got earnings soon with this in the next several weeks too. So just something to keep in mind. If we do come back down here and find some support, that would be a much better opportunity to buy some shares as earnings approaches. Let's go look at Boeing. Boeing has been on a nice little run lately, but looks like it is running out of steam. We had this falling wedge pattern, which we talked about in one of our other videos, that played out quite nicely with some upside. We didn't quite get our full 182 target that we thought, but it's still possible. Right now, we've got a bear flag channel forming. Doesn't mean it has to play out. The price could continue to climb up in this channel and hit the 182.50 mark and still see higher prices. Super possible. But the negative sentiment with the stock, the bad publicity, everything going on right now, it's very likely that we might, if this bear flag here breaks down, then we're probably coming back down to the 162 mark at the very least. It may find some support in the 167, 165 area with this trend line breakdown, but it would actually line up pretty nicely for it to come down here and find support in an area over here soon in the next several weeks. We've made some money with Boeing, but for now, I would not be looking to add shares or go long. I'm going to be keeping an eye on this structure play out to see what actually happens first. So yeah, not a whole lot to say there, but hands off for me, and not going to touch it until we see what happens in the next several weeks. Let's go look at some crypto related stuff. So we got Mara here. Mara had a little run up with the Trump pump again, you know, the pro crypto, but it's ran into some resistance. This blue line, will change it to yellow so you can see it. It is a bigger trend line that has held up and acted as support and resistance for quite a while now. More resistance recently. You see these candles here with the top wicks and then closing below the yellow line. This is a resistance line right now, which means price has to break over it, or it is inevitably going to come back down. And with this, you see these red lines that I've drawn, these red trend lines. It's another bear flag potentially forming. So it needs some help with another big Bitcoin run-up, some type of legislation from Trump talking about crypto, more upside somehow. If it doesn't get that soon, this is potentially just going to come back down, lose the $19 support level, and come all the way back down to the $17.50, and potentially touch this blue support line again. Personally, for me, I am not going to be looking at going long or holding any shares of Mara right now. I'm going to wait and see what happens. If it gets positive news and breaks over this trend line, we will probably see it retested at some point, which would be a better opportunity to go long on Mara if you wanted to do that. But for now, I'm going to stay away from it. Let's go look at another one of the chip stocks that everybody loves, AMD. We've talked about AMD before. And right now, AMD is also in a very, very important spot, a very big moment of truth, so to speak. It was able to get back over this 122 level, this yellow horizontal line, temporarily, which was a first good sign. But at the moment, it looks like this might just be a simple retest of a bear flag with more downside to come. This orange line here, this diagonal line, and then this blue diagonal line. This blue one is a very, very big previous support and resistance trend line that you can see it rejected off of big time. The orange and the blue where they crossed, the price got rejected big time, all the way back down here. We might have another candle or two where it kind of chops in this zone trying to break back over. But if it does not break over this blue trend line, and then more importantly, it needs to break back over this orange trend line. If it doesn't, more downside is happening for AMD. This bear flag that broke down here, the measured move that from this point to this point with the bear flag is all the way down to a price of about 88 bucks, which would align with another big trend line down here as well. So I would not be looking to go long AMD right now. I know it's a pretty big hype stock at the moment, and people think it can't go down anymore because it's just been going down, and nvida is going up, and chip stocks are doing great. But we got to follow what the chart is telling us. And right now, I don't see anything bullish, to be honest. We're underneath most EMAs, especially on the larger time frames, which is a bearish sign too. Which we've talked about in other videos, so I am hands-off on NVIDIA at the moment. However, a chip stock that looks kind of nice, in our opinion, is AVGO. And Nancy Pelosi owns call options for June of 2025, so we know this stock ain't done yet. We got a nice breakout of this blue trend line here. Price broke out, and we got a solid retest with a pretty nice looking hammer candle that knocked the price right back up. So the way that this is looking at the moment, we might consolidate around this price for a day or two before it goes and tries to test all-time highs again. This is a very bullish looking stock and structure at the moment. Perfectly fine opportunity to go long, in my opinion. It could come back down here and give it another retest at some point when these EMAs catch up in the coming weeks. But I think it's probably going to see all-time highs before that happens. If we get a little bit of a chop here for a few days, be curious to see what kind of patterns start to form in the more short term to help give it that momentum for upside. But as far as, looking at calls or buying shares, I think in the more short term, it's a great investment to be looking at buying shares or looking at call options. Make sure with several months of time for the play to take place. But yeah, I think it's a much better, healthier looking stock going on right now than something like nvida or AMD, for example. So those are our kind of 10 stocks that we're keeping an eye on right now, along with the overall market view. If you've followed up to this point, you're awesome. I appreciate it. I would love it if you hit that subscribe button, and that's just the best way to support and to hold me accountable to everything that I'm talking about too. Let's see how things go and see where these videos take off. So looks like my camera froze. So we're gonna call it quits here, and yeah, hope you enjoyed the video. Again, hit the subscribe and like, and be on the lookout for the next one.